to give. I feel but I can't forgive. I go all in this time, yeah, I won't regret. I'll pick the best on trip, they don't understand. I play to win, yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Oh, play to win, I play to win. Yeah, play to win, I play to win.
Thanks for tuning into the Commissioner Evaluation Show. I'm John McGlynn. You could find me on a Twitter machine at John McGlynn75. Other than that, I'm usually watching sports, enjoying life with my friends, or just having a good time talking to JT or all the rest of the good guys in the Twitter machine. So today, I had the pleasure of talking with my co-host with the Mo-host, JT Justin Taylor, and the wonderful and talented Mr. Chew Russell. We'll talk to Chew about his work, his life, his career outside of fantasy football, some hobbies, some commissioner questions, settings he prefers in leagues. Then we'll do some NFL news and rumors. We'll evaluate some trades that went down in the Mighty McGlynn Dynasty home leagues. We'll break down a team that is there for a rebuild, remodel, and have some suggestions to get it back on track. So that is the game plan for today. Let's get to my song.
McGlynn is in. I repeat, McGlynn is in. Let the fun begin. This is the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with your host, John McGlynn.
Was that Herms?
He got them guests on the Rolodex, stopping by to talk about some Dynasty Superflex. Everybody, yo, commish is in. It's time to sit down to listen to John McGlynn. Yo, who we trading, who we fading, who we getting off the squad. Knowledge never overrated, playing for number one. Hey, yo, McGlynn is in. It's time to let the fun begin. It's the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with John McGlynn.
All right, there was no show last week. I had a couple of my daughter's lacrosse games, went out to eat a place called Senor Frogs with the wife for my birthday. We had frog legs for the first time. I never had them before. It tastes like chicken, like everybody said. I had lobster bisque, Chilean sea bass, which is kind of overrated. Everybody said this is the best fish in the world. I'd much rather have a halibut or something like that than Chilean sea bass. But they had some subpar calamari, which I'm a huge calamari guy. It wasn't that good. It was kind of soft and, mushy. I like it when it's crunchy on the outside. Went to my favorite neighborhood bar called Champions to watch Jonathan Taves' last game as a Blackhawk. And then did a lawn jobs on a four-wheeler home at 3 a.m. from the bar. So like I'm a 17-year-old kid or something. But worked 48 hours of midnight shifts, went out with my family and my parents for my birthday yesterday, and bam, here we are. That's life. JT, what's new with you?
Yeah, I'm a big calamari guy as well. That's always disappointing when it's soft like that. So I'm a big fan as well. So too bad. Not good. I actually got to go to one of the famous barbecue restaurants of all time, Salt Lick in Texas. It was pretty outstanding. I was down there for the Two-Step In Music Festival just north of Austin in Georgetown. Got to see Zach Bryan and Tyler Childers. So that was pretty awesome. Nice little weekend last weekend. So I'm still in recovery mode this week, trying to get home and get life put back together and work and all those things. But it was a pretty nice thing. Happy birthday to you, John, as I got mine coming up just this weekend. So we're only about a week apart.
Yeah, 21 plus 19 years, I'm getting there. I'm getting up there pretty fast, but it is what it is. So we got a guest here today, Chew. First of all, Chew, tell me where the Twitter machine can find you, what you do, what's going on in your life, all that kind of stuff. What's new with you the last couple of weeks or so since the last time we talked? Tell me all about you, where they can find you at, everything that's going on with you.
I appreciate it, John. Yeah, and happy belated. Always good to get a little bit older, whether it's actually the number or you just feel older. But you can check me out on Twitter at Father Dynasty, and same thing for Instagram as well. That's my podcast. I started it almost 2 years ago now, just getting a chance to, once I became a dad, as your friends moving, getting older, starting families and that kind of thing. I found out Dynasty Fantasy Football was a great way to kind of stay in touch and have that constant group message of being just absolute fantasy football degenerates going. So it's a good way to keep in touch with everybody and obviously meet a lot of great people in the fantasy space, such as you all. So glad to do that. And in terms of what's been going on, I mean, I've got my 4-year-old who is now just starting T-ball, so it's been absolute chaos. Soccer's been okay because you can at least kind of, be the beehive and just kind of swarm around. T-ball is hoping that he's going to stand there and not, pick up the dirt, rub it on his face, throw his glove at the next kid, that kind of thing. Thankfully, I mean, him having a bat is probably like one of the worst things that you could do. But thankfully, the couple of the coaches are pretty good, can kind of, you know, keep his head on straight, literally and figuratively. But yeah, just that and living and working and just having a good time.
I coached t-ball for 7 straight years, and it's my favorite sport to coach because everybody scores, all the parents clap, you know, they all shake hands, you get a treat at the end of the game. It's the last time before a coach pitch starts when you know, then it's, why isn't my kid pitching? Why isn't my kid doing this? Why, you know, I had so many good exercises for kids in t-ball. You know, I set a mitt. Like, I pitched to the kids in t-ball. I try to get them off the tee as soon as possible, learn them how to show them how to bat. So I put a mitt about 4 steps towards first base. So I'd have them swing, and then instead of throwing the bat after they swing, on the way to first base, they drop their bat on top of the glove that was on the way to first base. And I'd have the coach stand about 3 steps behind first base, teach the kids to run all the way through first. Don't stop before the base, go past the base and give the coach a high five and come back around. We got into signals, like how the kids to stay at first, or on the way to first base, watch the coach at first. He'll tell them to go to second, and then watch the third base coach tell them to go to third, or whatever the story was. You know, there was so many. The big thing with t-ball is you have to have like 4 or 5 coaches at least. You know, every parent's got to do something. You know, and you show them the drills. Like, hey, I did nosy, toesy, throwsy, which was when you throw in the ball, look, step, and throw to the ball. We did alligator vacuum, which is put your mitt down, alligator, hold the ball in, vacuum, hold your mitt up, and then nosy, toesy, throwsy. We had all these kind of things to do. Like, I mean, we had probably 17 drills. At the end of every season, our teams were just smoking these other teams. I mean, it's all t-ball, everybody scores, but the progress that we saw, so compared to some of the other teams, like you said, we're sitting in the dirt, picking daisies, throwing dirt at each other. You know, our kids were really kind of into it. So I enjoy t-ball so much coaching. JT, did you ever coach t-ball?
No, I absolutely can't stand t-ball. Here's the issue for me. You sound like the best t-ball coach in the history of the world. I mean, I go to these t-ball games and I can't hardly take it. These kids are taking 75 swings. Half of them are not even big enough to hold the bat. They're just hitting the stand the whole time. I'm like, what are we doing here? I'm like, this is just pure chaos to me. So I kind of skipped the t-ball years. I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I coached little kids like baseball camp at the YMCA when I was in college, and that was more than enough for me. Oh man, just trying to get the kids to listen and do the stuff. Like I said, you had probably the best t-ball teams ever, because every game I've ever gone to is just pure disaster. Everybody running into each other. There's always 10 kids not paying attention, and you get that one kid that smokes one and it hits one of them in the face or the chest because they're not looking, and everybody's got to stop, and everybody freaks out. So you have made it sound way better than any t-ball experience I ever had. So I did flag football for the first time. I used to coach high school football for a really long time, but I did flag football for my son's team, 3rd and 4th graders this year, and they, from the beginning to the end, was amazing. Most of them had never played a team sport because of COVID. So a lot of them had never done anything like that. And so it was really just trying to get these kids to like be around each other, talk, like they're just not used to doing it. So my team really improved from the very first game of the year to the end. We were a disaster at the beginning. I'm just trying to teach them how to run 5 basic routes, you know, in flag football and that. So, but we ended up winning a couple games in the playoffs, upset some teams. They weren't happy about us beating them. But yeah, John, you probably T-ball Coach of the Year award. Getting those kids to listen and actually do drills. I've never seen anybody to do drills in T-ball. It's a mess.
Oh, the trick is to have one coach for every 2 or 3 kids, and each one of them doing something different. So, and every 5 minutes, I would blow the whistle, and they'd rotate. So they get swings to the bat. It was, a minute and a half, one kid, next minute and a half, next kid, because their attention span is like this short. So you have to keep them going. It was the catching drill. We had a tennis ball doing like how to catch a ball when they're in the air. We had how to bat. How to run past first base. Look at the coaches going around, and then even when we weren't on the field. I had a batting order. I had a team mom and a couple other dads putting helmets on, getting the kids ready, showing them how to swing. We had songs. So all the kids that were on the bench were singing songs for whoever it was. We made up songs for each one of the kids. It was like a finely tuned, well-oiled machine. Our T-ball teams. I absolutely loved it. It was my favorite time to coach kids because, like I said, when the parents start getting involved, everything goes straight downhill. That kind of deal. So, So, Chew, tell me about yourself. Tell me about a day of Chew Russell outside of fantasy football.
Yeah, so let's see. Outside of fantasy football, and that's changed a little bit as of recently, I am in banking. So I work at a community bank nearby. But I also, within the last couple weeks or so, was joining my wife in real estate, so being a real estate agent. So getting going with that, and we're gluttons for punishment because she already has another job she also does doing recruiting. So why not have 4 or 5 jobs between all of us, on top of course raising our son and that kind of thing. But yeah, just working, always trying to just like T-ball, finding something for our son to do, and we got our pets in the house, so just trying to keep everybody fed. Ideally, no one gets lost, no one gets hurt too bad. So just doing what we can.
My wife went to chef school for 5 years, so we're all pretty lucky. She comes home and whips. She's like an octopus in front of the stove. We don't really go out to eat much. Everything's homemade. We buy a cow every year. That kind of stuff. Everything. It's nice. JT, talking about food. How's the restaurant doing? It's almost that time of year when it gets busy, right?
Yeah, it's going to start getting packed here. All the graduations coming up around here, high school stuff, University of Illinois graduations, always crazy. Just had Mom's Weekend at U of I this past weekend. That's always a little bit of a cluster. The moms come in town and they get a little wild. So it gets a little crazy. But yeah, things are going to start picking up here big time. Right after spring break is when stuff starts getting crazy in the old restaurant industry.
What? Early 40-year-old moms getting crazy at the bar? I never heard of that before. What are you talking about? Yeah. So Chew, how did you get into fantasy football space? Or how did you get into fantasy football, and how long have you been playing for?
Oh, let's see. It of course started with redraft, and I know it started, in high school at some point. I want to say it probably started with a redraft league on probably Yahoo or something, maybe ESPN. So that probably would have been like 20 years ago or just short of that. But I've got a couple of buddies who one of which who is the commissioner to the first Dynasty League I ever got into, that, we'd started the redraft league that long ago, and we actually still have that league going on now. We've shuffled a couple of members, but for the most part, the core 8 of us, I think, have been the same ones. But yeah, we've always, loved sports, talking sports, whether it's just like, random sports trivia. A couple of my buddies are really sharp minds for that, or which player went to which college. A couple of buddies that are geniuses for that kind of stuff. But it's always been just something fun to do, and certainly once I kind of stumbled into Dynasty, that was something that gave me an excuse to talk about it for all year round versus taking about half the year off. So
speaking of talking all year round, what sparked the idea of your show anyway?
So if you ask my wife, it's wildly ironic that I chose the first iteration was actually just audio before getting onto YouTube, but she thinks I'm a bit of a talker, but generally speaking, I don't voluntarily choose to talk that much, if I'm being completely honest. So, but I have just a passion for fantasy football and just kind of connecting with people, and just kind of like a one-on-one type thing. So the fact that I would just start, stumbling into talking fantasy football, and certainly peppering in the fatherhood aspect of, I've learned a lot of people in the fantasy space, it's not a full-time thing that they're doing. They have a family, they have, life outside of fantasy football. So it was a good way to kind of start that, connect with more people. I'd been off Twitter, I want to say, for over 10 years. And when I stumbled into this, I knew I had to get on Twitter. And when I got back on that, realizing the amount of people in the community, in fantasy, for content creation is incredible. Everybody's been so nice. So it's been great just to meet more people and do that.
Yeah, a lot of people complain about how bad the experience is on Twitter, but I really haven't had a bad experience at all. Every once in a while you get to you have to learn how to kind of just walk away, put your phone away for a couple minutes, let it go. And then, 2 minutes later, it'll be a different conversation. You get away from like any kind of, bad takes or bad people ripping on you for stuff. But I enjoy Twitter. It's kind of the way to go. So what's your favorite part of this whole football experience? Is it like playing in your redraft leagues, Dynasty, IDP, best ball, Debbie, Camps, Can? Do you like podcasting, writing, something else? Like, what's the favorite part if you were to have one favorite part of the entire fantasy football experience, what would it be?
Honestly, I just got into writing, I think probably about a month ago on goingfor2.com, but doing podcasting for almost 2 years, and I guess redraft, have done the longest, but just the playing Dynasty, not getting on too many teams, having enough where I'm, kept busy, but I can still kind of focus on each of them and kind of, do what I can to trade and add and drop and manage them well. But Dynasty, just the fact that it's a year-round thing, as you join more teams, you kind of have teams at different spots. So you may have one that's rebuilding and you get the chance to work on that and have that process. And then you have maybe one that's actually competing, so you don't feel like all your teams are just a complete dumpster fire at all times. That's how I felt when I first started playing, and I didn't fully appreciate what Superflex meant. So I was like, yeah, I'll be good with drafting Matt Stafford, Josh Rosen, and Joe Flacco or something like that. And then after flaming out pretty quickly, I realized I need to understand the league settings, understand that Dynasty is theoretically forever. But yeah, Dynasty, just playing Dynasty, honestly, is my favorite thing.
It's a good answer. Absolutely. What's your favorite host for fantasy football? Like, are you an NFL guy, sleeper, Yahoo, that kind of stuff?
So I'm going to go wild card in this. So the first league I joined for Dynasty was actually on Flea Flicker. And I'm a huge fan. It's very simple. It's not a lot of frills to it necessarily. And there's a little bit of variation between the mobile version and the getting on the actual website for the browser and everything. But that one's been really good. Of course, getting into Sleeper because everyone that's doing, mock drafts or anything like that is going to be on there. Certainly was a bit overwhelming when I first got into Sleeper. I felt like I was almost going to accidentally delete my team out of the league a couple of times. But thankfully that did not happen. But that one's been good. I mean, just the sheer amount of data and information and resources on Sleeper is great. But I mean, Flea Flicker, it's simple enough for me. I can do plenty of stuff outside of it, but take the information that's in there. So I'm a simple guy.
What was your first ever Dynasty pick?
So this will also point out how I don't understand Superflex. My first pick was Ezekiel Elliott in 2018. So good player, but not understanding the need for a quarterback at the time.
Was it like 108 or something like that, or like what? Where were you at? Like towards the middle, towards the end? 106,
I want to say.
Oof.
Right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I mean, back then, yeah, he was a powerhouse. So.
Oh yeah.
It's not the end of the world, but some people like to get a stud running back in the first round and do the the quarterback and wide receiver thing later. They call it like a primo RB or something like that approach. But there's no, as long as you can make up for later and pencil in the guys who are mid-tier quarterbacks and grab them. But yeah, I always start out. I try to trade up to 1 and 2 or somewhere around there and get quarterbacks first all the time. Yeah. Almost every one of my teams has a combination of Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. 1 or 2 of the 3, or sometimes all 3 of the 3. So now I have 10 years of not worrying about the quarterback position whatsoever. Even if one of them gets hurt, it's still bam, bam. The only thing I hate is when it just seems like every week, if I sit Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Trevor Lawrence go nuts. Or if Patrick Mahomes go nuts when I start those 2 guys because of a matchup, or if I start Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, then Trevor Lawrence has 55 points that week. It's like, it's a little bit aggravating, but it's a good problem to have when your quarterbacks are all good. So whatever. What's everybody has a favorite player they have for fantasy and a real favorite player in real life. Like, who's your favorite player on your fantasy football teams of all time, and who's your favorite player of all time in the NFL?
So if we're talking not active players, my favorite player of all time is Steve Smith. I do have his jersey also, but I wear it a lot, so I'd rather not put it up on the wall. So it's actually, I respect him the most, which is why I don't have him up on the wall currently. But yeah, a huge Panthers fan. So Steve Smith, I never got to, I guess when I was in Dynasty, never got to fully appreciate his prime of his playing career. And maybe in terms of someone now that's more current, if we're sticking with Panthers, I did like DJ Moore, although I was never able to get him on a Dynasty team. Because actually in one of the leagues, the guy that got him is a huge Panthers fan. So what I would have had to pay to get him is my fandom is not going to overrule my intelligence if I have any bit of that. So definitely couldn't do that. But yeah, now that he's on the Bears, I'm broken at this point.
Yeah, I'm a fandom guy. I don't care if my team sucks. I'd rather enjoy my team with a bunch of mushes than win it with a bunch of the guys I hate. So it's. I do pretty well in fantasy football. I think I either came because of the DeMar Hamlin situation. I think I tied for first place, and I was in a championship game in 4 leagues. I was in the playoffs and like 3 or 4 more. So I've won across the board. I won plenty of money to pay for the next 5 or 6 years of all my fantasy football leagues. But I still like having my guy. I like having the Chris Godwins, the DJ Moores, the guys like that on my team. So I'll always be that way. And thank God they came up pretty big in the early playoffs this year. They did pretty well for me. So I'm good. But what's your favorite Sunday afternoon food when you're sitting around watching Scott Hansen on Red Zone?
So I'd have to say, if it's getting food, it's probably something just running to the Buffalo Wild Wings that's like 3 minutes away just to get some food real quick. But if it's something at home, which I'm more of a fan of, is it's making your own chicken nachos. So you got the nachos, the chicken, bunch of different cheeses. You get some salsa on there. Pretty much just everything but in the kitchen sink, just whatever else we have, basically just kind of scoop it on there, throw it in the oven. But it's simple enough. It fills me up immediately, and it goes good with beer. So,
JT, you got chicken nachos at the restaurant or what?
Absolutely. Got to have chicken nachos.
What would you rather? You don't have a Hooters by you or what? You go to Buffalo Wild Wings? They have terrible chicken.
Yeah, we actually don't have it. We did have a Hooters at one point, and then it shut down. I don't know if that was some sort of like some sort of food issue, or if it was just, I can't imagine it was a money problem, unless there was some mismanagement there. But we had one probably 5-6 years ago, I want to say.
Yeah, the one we had shut down around here too. So I think it's just their corporation. I think is having some issues, but
ours was shut down for like a year. It actually burned down for a year before COVID. Opened up like a week before COVID started. We shut down for a year and a half while COVID was going on. So it was kind of like terrible. I mean, when it opened up again, we couldn't wait to get back there and stuff our face with wings. I love Hooters is so much better than. Now, don't get me wrong. I like the sauce better at Buffalo Wild Wings, but I like the wings themselves better at Hooters. So, all right. Nice to get to know you a little bit. So, let's ask some commissioner questions. You guys have in your dynasty leagues, do you leave waivers on all off season, or do you turn them off like for a while and give everybody a break?
No, so it turns off. Let's see. It turns off at some point during the playoffs. The only people that can utilize the waivers are the people in the playoffs. But then once the season officially ends, it's locked until. I'm trying to think. We have a rookie draft, and then it's some point before the NFL season. But basically, for the offseason, it's locked.
Yeah, that's with fantasy hockey and fantasy baseball and all the other stuff, fantasy basketball. It's definitely. I think it should be locked for people to live their life.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to sneeze for a minute there, so I had to try to mute myself. But what do you think about? Do you enjoy a taxi squad, or you just say expand the roster by 3 or 4 more spots?
So I'm in one dynasty league that has taxi squad. I could kind of take it or leave it. I think I'd probably end up preferring just expanding the roster because I'm the person that just looks for who is like the 368th ranked dynasty player, and he could pop this next year if all these people get hurt and this thing happens and that thing happens. So I'm more looking for those guys than I am, stashing a rookie and actually not playing them for a year or two because I have zero patience.
I try not to have anybody that's like ranked over 300 on my teams at all. Like if I could possibly get everybody on my team, 25, 30-man rosters, anybody that's in their rankings over like probably 250 to 300, I don't even want them on my team. So. Yeah. Taxi squad. JT, we did a team for the W Royale Listener League, and he was JT. Who'd you pick up? Some guy named Ford, some tight end named Ford.
Oh, that draft was ridiculous because it's a C2C league, and we got in this draft that Josh is trading for everybody's draft picks because nobody wants them because everybody's already got all the best players that are going to go in the draft. They already had them on their college side, so we're just trading every garbage player we have for a pick and just saying, hey, we're going to stash all these guys. The guys on our bench are just ridiculous. At this point, John's like, screw it, trade for a guy. We'll take him. We'll put that guy on there. We've got some low-ranked guys on there. It's going to be interesting to see if some of them even get drafted in the actual NFL draft. We might have to have some cuts before we even get going.
Yeah, I traded. I think I had some pretty decent trades in that draft. I ended up getting a handful of dudes that were actually a couple tight ends of Musgrave, and I traded guys I didn't think were going to be available in the draft. They were, and I traded like garbage. I ended up getting I already had Quentin Johnson on my team. That was one guy. I got Jonathan Mingo, which isn't he's not great, but I got Musgrave. I got Zach Kuntz. So I was pretty happy about that. I mean, it was the perfect RAS score for somebody. Just these tight ends who you never know we're going to pan out or not, which I'd be more than happy to take a flyer. That's what they're on my taxi squad now. So but it's 35-man rosters and a 5-man taxi squad in the Campus Camp League. So it's a little different. It's so deep, and these heavily depleted drafts were crazy. So.
Yeah, I thought we actually did a pretty good job with the guys that were out there. I was pumped we got Musgrave and Mingo, actually.
Chu Russell looks like Joe Cada, World Series of Poker champion. Did you ever hear that before?
I've never heard that, but I'll take it.
All right, Unifolk. Unifolk, what's your real name here? I got to give you a shout out. You're on this all the time, so give me a shout out so I can shout you out for being a good part of the audience. All right, let's see. Do you play in leagues where the commissioner has to approve trades, or you just all trades go through all the time?
I've got one where it's technically like it's not like it could be like he has to accept or veto it. I think there's one where he ends up having to accept it, or if enough time passes, say if he like not paying attention, he's on vacation, whatever else, and he doesn't process it through. Then after like 48 hours or something, it just automatically goes through. So not necessarily like he can actually have the power to, say this can't happen.
Chris, are you serious? It's you? I didn't even, Unifolk. I'm like, thanks for being in here all the time. Thanks for joining on the show. I appreciate it. I thought this guy's in our league, and I don't even know who the hell this is.
I thought his picture kind of looked familiar. I was like, who is that? I was trying to look at that picture without getting all up in my screen super close, but I was like, hey, that kind of looks familiar.
Yeah, this guy's going to Sasuke with us in a couple weeks. I don't know what the hell it's Chris Joel Smith. Yeah, dude, the guy's awesome. He's in a couple leagues with me. I've seen him in person. I'm looking at the picture, but it's so short on my screen.
Yeah, it's so small. I know that's what I was doing too. I was like, it kind of looks familiar, but I was like, it's so small. I was like trying to figure it out.
Every time he comments, I'm saying like Unifolk because that's what he's got on here, but it's Chris Joel Smith. But thanks dude. I appreciate you coming on all the time, man. It means a lot to me. Now I know who it is. All right, good. So what advice would you give to somebody who wanted to make a leap from to a regular player to being a commissioner in their own league?
So I myself have never been a commissioner, mostly because I'm the person that has so many trades and ad drops that I understand how stressful I would make it for myself. So I choose not to put myself through that. But I think one thing that I think has been pretty important, one of my buddies who's a commissioner in 2 of the leagues that I'm in, one dynasty, one redraft, is having, pretty good kind of like, the set of kind of like, I guess, league guidelines or whatever, just kind of understanding like how everything goes. It's not just the scoring and understanding all that, but just understanding, when you have little things come up with stuff with trades or stuff with playoffs or stuff with if there's ties or that sort of thing. So just kind of really trying to consider and make sure that you have league bylaws that are, I guess, well outlined, and I'm sure they can change it over time. But if you kind of set the precedent for everything up front, I feel like it would make the commissioner's job much easier as it goes on. You're not having to make things up on the fly.
I've got 17 articles of unfortunately, JT got to sit through all the and Chris Joel Smith got to sit through. They had to live through my commissioner every year before the league starts. I have to approve first of all of my articles, and every article changes. It's for collusion or taxi squads if possible, or anything else like that. Any lineups, trades, tiebreakers in the playoffs, tiebreakers during the season, division stuff. Everything is all spelt out. Now we're in the process right now of actually voting on the scoring. We're just about done with that right now too. So everything's voted on before the league starts. I start these things up in person leagues all summer long, so we have plenty of time to hash out anything about once a day, once a week, depending on how good the league is. We'll burn through them all. We're just about done with the scoring. We've already done the article, all of our articles for our bylaws. I'm going to just verify that this is the roster. I'm going to ask for 2 tight ends possibly. Just make sure the roster's in the right spot. How many guys total, all that kind of stuff. But we're just about done with it, getting everything ready, and we're going to have our in-person draft on June 11th. So it's another Mighty McGlynn home league. We all get together, drink beers. I got my sticker board in the mail today, so we're all ready to go. 2012 team, 30-man sticker board. So it's I got a couple. It's a secret who's coming to the draft to be our sticker bitch this year, but that's every year. It was Mike Tagliere before. It was Rob Wozniak before. It's been a lot of good Chicago people. So Pat Fitzmaurice is in this league with us. lot of good dudes. JT, myself, Nate Powell. So that's going to be a much more powerful league than some of the other ones I started with that were mostly friends. So this is a lot of sharks in this league. So I can't wait to win this one, rubbing everybody's face.
I'm looking forward to it. It should be awesome. And John's been all over it. He was on my phone, blowing my phone. I was like, "What's going on?" John's like, "You're not voting. Why aren't you voting?" I have the pull up on Sleeper. I was like, "Oh, sorry, man." I was like, I get on top of it. I mean, I've got leagues right now. I'm trying to run guys down that haven't logged on since the end of the season. I'm like, "Are you still in the league? Will you answer me? Do I got to find somebody?" And John's like, "I'm already up past all that. I've got all the polls up. We've already voted on everything." And I'm like, I can't even get these guys to even send me a text back or get on, group me and answer if they're even going to be in the league. So I'm like, he's on top of it. So I'm impressed so far. I've got a few leagues. I'm like, man, I'm going to have to start stepping up my game and get on these guys a little earlier.
Some people love doing content every day. You see Nick Script, every day he's got some kind of background. He does all these stats. And he loves doing that. I love being a commissioner of leagues. That's exactly what I do. I take it seriously. I enjoy my leagues. I make it fun for everybody. I make sure that there's no problems. The money's talked about. We do our stuff in transactions in cash in person. We don't go through a third party website or something like that. It's in person. We have a draft lottery every year. Everybody gets together. I got a lotto ball machine. We all see who gets picks 1 to 6. I mean, yeah, it's all. This is what I like to do. I don't, I'm never going to get paid a penny. I just do this podcast and run home leagues and stuff. But this is what I consider fun for fantasy football. So it is what it is. All right, so let's get into some into the NFL itself. Every week the situations change. So we're going to ask a quick question about every league, just real fast, 5-10 second answers if possible, and so we'll go from there. JT, you're going to do the odds. Chew, you're going to do the evens, and we'll shoot on a list. All right. So here we go. JT, the Bears had like $400 million of free agent money. What happened to it all?
Yeah, they got into it quick and they signed everybody fast for a lot of money. So now they don't get excuses. They better turn it up this year. If the Bears don't come out and play well at the beginning, there's going to be some heads rolling. That's for sure.
That's for sure. Chew, Bengals. Do the Bengals get a top rookie tight end this year?
No offense to Irv Smith, Drew Sample, and Devin Asai or whatever his name is. No, that's the Barry.
Asiati.
Yeah. There's no way they don't get Dalton Kincaid, Michael Mayer. I would like Kincaid. I think that would be electric for that offense.
He seems to be the guy there, but he's looking at the number one tight end on the board this year. There's a difference between a fantasy tight end and a good NFL tight end. Who's the guy that was on the Panthers for a while? That was a good blocking tight end from Notre Dame, but never scored any fantasy points. But he was a really good blocking tight end. I can't remember his name, but it'll come to be
Tommy Tremble.
Tommy Tremble.
Yeah.
Tommy Tremble can block an entire river of water by himself. He's such a good blocker, but he catches about 3 balls a year. Unfortunately, it's terrible. But
yeah, he got a touchdown on a running play as a tight end.
Yeah. So, all right, JT, Bills. Is Damian Harris enough, or do they draft a running back this draft?
I would be really surprised if they don't take somebody. Whether they take somebody high is the question. Whether they try to jump in there in the end of the second round and maybe get somewhere, if they wait till that 3rd or 4th round. But I definitely think they take a swing at somebody, at least one guy, maybe 2, in this draft, just in case.
I think they really got to focus on wide receiver before they do anything else, But if Harris is an early down back and Josh Allen's an early down back, and they have a receiving back also, I think they're okay with that. They don't need a running back, and there's a lot of good depth at running back this year, so they can definitely wait. But you need to get a good wide receiver in round 1 is what I think their biggest priority is, someone to play the slot. So, all right, Chew, Broncos. Which Russell Wilson will we get in 2023?
I mean, maybe it's the optimist in me, but it can't be as bad as it was last year. I do think it's going to be better than what it was, but I think the vintage Russell Wilson that we remember from Seattle a couple years ago, that's pretty far gone at this point. But I think with the offense he has around him, at the defense to boot, I think he'll do well, and I think if he works within the confines of what he needs to do, he'll be all right.
All right. Here we go. Browns. Is the entire Deshaun Watson thing going to blow up?
I just have a feeling this thing's not going to work out. I know you can, kind of harp on how he didn't play great when he got in last year and the rust and all. Now he's got a whole off season. I just have a feeling this is just that Browns quarterback curse where I just have a feeling that this thing is going to end up not being what they thought they were getting. And if they come out and they stink it up this year and they don't make the playoffs, paying him what they're paying him, which I think they're the worst team in that division. There's people are gonna freak out because what are we gonna do with this QB that we just paid a ton of money for, and now we can't even win with him? It feels like a ready to explode situation in Cleveland for me.
They seem to be everybody's talking about they're going to flip the whole scene around. Instead of being a running team, they're going to try and be a passing team. If they maybe get rid of Nick Chubb at some point in the time in the season. I didn't see really a problem with the offense before, just ground and pound and playing some decent defense, but they seem to be falling apart a little bit. And if Watson doesn't really step up his game, yeah, I agree with you a little bit. Buccaneers, how bad is this team going to be in an already bad division?
I mean, yeah. Of course, a Panthers fan in this division is arguably the worst or second worst in football if you're being positive about it. But, I mean, with how this team is constructed and with the fact that it's either Baker Mayfield or maybe one of these rookie quarterbacks at the helm, no offense to Kyle Trask, it's going to be the Bucs or the Falcons battling for last place in an atrocious division.
Yeah. Cardinals, why aren't they trading back for a ton of picks? Are they waiting till draft day to do this move, or what's the story?
This is something I've been wondering about for a while. It seems like there was all that talk about trading up to number 1, and now it's you listen to everybody's like, okay, who's going to move up in that top 4? Who's going to move in that top 3? Everybody keeps talking about it, but it seems like the Cardinals aren't really talking to anyone. It's a surprise to me that they're sitting there. I saw a couple trades that had them maybe moving down one spot with the Colts moving up to make sure they get their guy. I could see that happening, but it's going to be interesting to see if this actually plays out to actual draft day if they don't make a move until like right before the pick, because it seems kind of strange that they haven't got anything done as of yet. And maybe they're waiting to see. Maybe they think somebody's going to fall to them that they want. But I'm a little surprised that they haven't made a move with how bad I think their team's going to be in this upcoming season.
I think they're going to be terrible. I think they're trying to tank on purpose, what it seems like. So we'll see. Chargers, does Kellen Moore unlock Justin Herbert?
Absolutely. I think this offense is in a great spot right now already, even with just what Justin Herbert's been able to do so far. And I think they're going to add, whether it be another one of these good tight ends that we were talking about or another wide receiver, Kellen Moore is going to open that offense wide open.
Excellent. Chiefs. The Chiefs go wide receiver in round 1 of the draft?
Here's the thing for me with them. They proved last year they didn't need a stud wideout to make it happen with Travis Kelce. So it feels like that's what they maybe should be looking at the end of round 1, but maybe they don't. Maybe they say, hey, we're going to try to see if one of these defensive guys fall to us. We'll take a guy like in the 3rd or 4th round. We feel like Tony's going to be better. We feel like Sky Moore is going to be better. So they feel like they're one of those teams that might go wide receiver, but I could actually see them waiting and maybe taking a guy in like the 3rd or 4th round and then kind of running with what they got and hoping that those guys all make a leap this next year.
It's funny because they've been adding like so many. They got like John Ross, that speedster John Ross. They got Amir Smith-Marset. Justin Ross is supposedly doing crazy things in the offseason. Richie James is a nice addition. Justin Watson on top of Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, and MVS, everybody's favorite deep ball threat, never does anything. But they have a lot of like under the radar talent on this team. So I'm kind of happy about the whole situation with them. So we'll see what happens. But if they do draft another wide receiver to take over an MVS spot, I don't know.
I did an article for Dioff Football, and I think A.T. Perry is a guy that I could see them going for because he plays that X spot. He plays out wide. I could see them maybe going a guy like him in like the 3rd or 4th round and kind of being a surprise a spot just because he's one of the few guys that's big in this draft. 6'2", almost 200 pounds, really productive in college. Not getting a ton of buzz, but had a really good RAS score and was ultra productive at Wake Forest. So he's a guy that, like, if he ends up landing somewhere like KC, he's going to fly up my rookie draft boards.
Yeah, I don't think they're someone that could fall to them, possibly like a Quentin Johnson or like later in the draft a little bit, maybe someone like Jalen Hyatt, someone to stretch the field to take over the MVS spot. Because we know what MVS is kind of already, but they do have a lot of. They have a lot of, they got Kelce in the middle. They got, Tony and Sky Moore to kind of suck up a lot of the middle of the field or short yardage stuff. So if they get a good field stretcher, that would be a great pickup for them. But I think they're trying to get rid of their running back right now on almost every team I have because I feel they're going to take a running back in this draft this year and kind of kill everybody's value. So, no, it is what it is. Colts. Are the Colts a quarterback away from being good?
So if good is the barometer, I would say yes. I mean, they're in a pretty weak division with the Jags, the Titans, and the Texans. With the rumblings that the Texans might not even go quarterback this year. I'm a Davis Mills fan, and give me one more year of good times, and then I'm good. But with the Titans, if they go quarterback, the Jags are currently the prominent team in that division. If the Colts can lock down quarterback now and really grow with what I think is still an okay O-line and a solid defense, they'll be all right.
Who do you want them to take? Richardson, Stroud, Young, or Levis?
I'm pretty confident the Panthers are going Young, and I'm a huge Anthony Richardson fan. I would prefer he ends up falling to like the Lions or something like that so he can sit a year, but I also don't think he needs to do that. I get the point, but I think his legs are going to save him and give him enough safety as he learns the position at the professional level.
I had this thing. I had me and JT were going to go to KC to go watch the draft together. He's still going anyway, but my daughter's prom ended up being that Friday, so I threw my entire I got to go take 2 pictures for 5 seconds with my daughter in her prom dress and her daddy. Now I can't go to the NFL draft because of it, but I wanted to sit there and see if Will Levis fell to the Colts and see just how bad JT would be.
I'm sweating just thinking about it already. I'm nervous. I'm totally nervous, John. I'm telling you, we get closer and more people keep calling mocks. And every time I look at a mock, the very first thing I do when I open it up is like, please tell me they don't have Levis to the Colts at 4. Please. And that's the first thing I look at every mock. I'm a big CJ Stroud guy. I've said it a million times. I really want. Everybody's talking about these negative things coming out about him. I'm like, ooh, great. Yeah, keep talking bad about him. I'm like, awesome. I'm like, let him drop to 4. So I really want him. But man, I am going to be sweating it out like mad on draft night. If they go Will Levis, I am going to lose my mind. It's going to ruin my whole weekend. It's going to absolutely ruin it. But so let's hope that doesn't happen.
I'm super pulling that Stroud does fall and he falls in her lap just for you, so I can see how I just get to see
I'll be so happy.
Going down.
I'll be like, it's like we won the Super Bowl. It's like picking fourth. But I was like, I hope it happens. I hope it's bad. I'll get my number 7 jersey out. I'll be ordering that thing immediately. That'd be awesome.
Nice. Can Dak get the Cowboys over the hump this year?
Man, I feel like these Cowboys are in trouble. They just feel like, I feel like they missed their window. The Eagles are a ton better. The Giants finally stepped up last year and was better. Even the Commanders, I think, are kind of headed in the right direction. So it feels like this Cowboys team should be better than what they've been doing. But I feel like they maybe have missed this window and maybe they're in trouble.
They just signed CeeDee Lamb's 5th-year option right before we got on the show. I saw that. So that's a step in the right direction. But yeah, I feel the same way that they really, the Giants kind of ran away with the division last year when it should have been the Cowboys. So it is what it is. So, or the Giants actually did better than the Cowboys anyway. So Dolphins, do they draft a tight end? They stick with Durham Smythe, Saubert, or Tanner Connor? Like what's their story? I don't think they even use a tight end in this offense. So they need one.
Yeah, after they let Gesicki go and criminally underutilized him last year, and I thought re-signed Smythe, so they really love that guy. I could see them drafting one because it's such a deep class, but not someone who is going to take away from any of those guys you just mentioned.
They're going to draft a blocking tight end who could sit in there and just block and make sure Tua doesn't get hurt and that kind of deal. And I see these rumors of Tom Brady denying that he might go play for the Dolphins again this year, and that would be my son would be if Tom Brady plays for the Dolphins, I'm going to really honestly have to go buy an official Tom Brady jersey for him because he's the biggest Tom Brady fan in the world, but he's also a Dolphins fan, which is kind of I'm a Dolphins fan too. So, but it would be he would just be glued to the TV every Sunday afternoon watching the Dolphins with Tom Brady at quarterback. It would be his dream come true. So I hate Tom Brady. I can't stand the guy. He makes me sick to my stomach. So it would be one more reason not to watch the Dolphins anymore and just become a full-fledged Bills fan. But I get the guy's awesome. I get it. It is what it is. But guys, he's just a worm. I don't like him. Anyway.
I'd have a ton of Superflex teams that'd be in trouble if Tua isn't starting. I'd be real screwed.
Yeah. All right. No more Dolphins talk. Eagles. Can the Eagles shake off the Super Bowl hangover?
they feel like they're one of the few teams that lost the Super Bowl, but you felt like they could have won, and you actually feel like they might have gotten better. So it's going to be interesting. They're going to have a much harder schedule this year than they had last year, but they feel like they're a team that they're right on that cusp of maybe even being better next year than this next season than they were. So if anybody is going to bounce back and have a good year after losing the Super Bowl, we always see that team kind of fall apart the next year. I feel like they're one of the teams that could definitely get back in it.
What if they go get like a Anaconda or a big back what's his name? Who's the guy that played behind Bijan?
Roshan.
Roshan Johnson.
Yeah, Roshan. What if they get signed like a guy like that just to kill the offense, just nickel down with a great defense, run the clock down, and just and then instead of the wedge play with Jalen Hurts, they run a wedge play and just stuff Roshan Johnson's fat ass in there. They're going to score every play. There's nothing they can do to stop that. When you run the wedge, it's hard enough. We ran a wedge with my grammar school football team, like my son's grammar school football team out here, and you almost cannot stop it. If you're trying to stop it with Roshan Johnson behind the wedge, I mean that's almost impossible. You see how good they run it now. Anytime it gets close, they kill it, but. That would be phenomenal. Not only for that play, but just chunk running down the clock yardage kind of stuff too. It would be great. I'm looking for them to draft a big back. Falcons, is Desmond Ridder the future in Atlanta?
The nice short answer is no. I mean, in terms of Desmond Ridder, I see him as the guy that Alec Pierce made look good at Cincinnati. I really didn't see it with him coming out of college. He got incrementally better kind of through college, with the amount of snaps that he played. I think if you were going to see a truly great quarterback, you would have seen it more so then. And the fact that he took over from Mariota doesn't really say much. It just says much less for Mariota. So he's not the guy.
I keep getting these offers. It's for me to send Desmond Ridder and a 204, 111 or 204, those kind of the trades to get Derek Carr on my team. And that's like, I trust Carr more than I trust Ridder, but they're kind of in the same tier. I don't think it's worth like a 111 or it's a 14-team league, 14-team superflex, which is hard. And quarterbacks are really hard to get. Yeah. So I'm just trying to think, do I do that? But I feel like I can get like a pretty decent running back at 111 and keep Ridder instead of just having Carr, which is like the same tier. So I don't trust either one of those guys. So I'm just going to keep the 111 or the 204 and keep Ridder still. It is what it is. It's probably a bad mistake in like another year or so when they draft a quarterback next year. But it is what it is. You live and you learn, and my team sucks. So let's see. 49ers. Will Sam Darnold be the 49ers week 1 starter?
I would love to see it. Get a little Darnold, CMC back together. Man, they looked great at the start of last season for Carolina before Darnold got hurt. I mean, I just feel like if Darnold gets a shot there, that he could get unleashed in the Niners offense. I just feel like he's a guy that finally would be in a good spot with a good team, good players around him. If he gets in there, I don't think he gives up that job. I really don't. I think because that team's going to be good, and I think if he gets a shot, I think he can stay in there. But the biggest question for me is he going to get that shot? Are they going to move Lance? How long is Purdy going to be out? So if he does, I love it. I love that move. I'm getting Darnold everywhere I can right now just in case. But I'm hoping so. I really hope he is the week 1 starter for the Niners.
Ditto. Giants. Will the Giants make the playoffs or did they peak in 2022?
So what I saw the Giants do was insane with what Daboll was able to do with that offense, the amount of snaps that Saquon took under center and how it just kind of worked out. I don't think they're going to have so much luck as it seemed like some of those outcomes was for 2022, but I do think they make the playoffs, and I think they're going to be in a much better spot, certainly if they have the health of some of those receivers after they also add in the draft.
Jaguars. Are the Jags really close to putting it all together?
It does seem like this team is maybe on the verge, especially in a terrible division, that they can make it, which is just is mind-blowing, honestly, with how bad they were pre-last season, the last couple of years. Like, man, this team's a decade away. But Peterson's done a great job there. T-Law got unleashed. I think they're going to add some more pieces on offense, and just in a bad division, I feel like this Jags team's a team I could get on board with, and see them, making a good push and threatening. Obviously they're probably a couple players away in the AFC there, but I definitely think they're going to be a team you're going to hear a lot about this year.
We talked a pregame show about a trade that was going on. We'll talk about trades later too, but this one didn't happen yet. I've got Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen, and Mahomes on my team, and my team was I won. I came in second place 2 years ago, and I tied with the Damar Hamlin situation this year. So my team is right there. I feel like I have one of the top 3 teams, maybe top 4 teams in the league for sure. But the trade was I would send away Trevor Lawrence and Isaiah Pacheco. I would get back Hollywood Brown, Kyler Murray, the 104, which I would hope to turn into JSN, and the 204, which I would hope to turn into I'm not sure Roshan will be there if he gets drafted early, but a Banacanda or somebody like that, a good running back. Which side would you guys take in that situation?
I'd probably go the Kyler side, honestly. As you're talking about with what your overall structure is with the other quarterbacks you have, there is a bit of fragility with, even once Kyler's back and healthy, what does that team even look like? What does, ownership and the coaches and everything want out of that team going forward? I don't think that Kyler's success is contingent upon the previous coach with Kingsbury, and I do think that he can do well, and I think some of it was he was just put in a bad spot.
JT, if they move on from Kyler Murray and he goes somewhere else, can he succeed in a different offense besides the Arizona Cardinals, or is he just too small and too injury prone to kind of make anything happen?
I think the biggest thing with him is just injuries. When he's played, he's been pretty good. The question is going to be, is he playing good enough for real life football for his team to win? Or is he one of those guys that's always going to put up great fantasy stats, but real life, he just doesn't get it done on his team. So that's the question for me. We've seen it with Arizona before and how bad they're going to be. I'm surprised we haven't had more talk. And I think it's just because of the injury. I'm surprised there isn't more talk about trying to move on from him. I know they're going to take a huge hit if they try to trade him as far as the salary cap and dead money, but they've done it before. I could see them if they just tank this year, that they hold him out. They don't do anything. They try to move in the offseason. They try to go get a Caleb Williams with the first pick and start all over. I can totally see that because it just seems like a lot of those guys are frustrated in Arizona, and they might have to do a full teardown. And usually, if you're going to do a full teardown, the first guy you got to get rid of is the expensive QB.
Okay, so that's I kind of feel the same way. So in that case, would you just keep Trevor Lawrence, or would you try to still make that trade happen?
I think you're getting a good spot of that trade. I think you're getting good value. I love T-Law.
Yes.
We talked about this last year. I went when they had that down rookie year, I was making offers everywhere for him because I was like, oh, this is the only time I'm going to be able to get him without paying through the nose, because once he bounces back, everyone's going to be like, oh, yeah, I forgot he was the 1-1. And this player we were waiting for forever and ever. So I went and got him everywhere I could last year. I just feel like he's got a long, long, successful career ahead of him. And so he's a guy I hate to move because I just feel like you're going to get a good 10, 12, 13 years out of him at a high level. So I'd have to be blown away with the trade probably for me because I like him too much. I just think his upside on an improving team is just going to keep going up and up and up.
Yeah, and I might have too much. Chatter in my ears about JSN being the best team that ever walked in the face of the earth for rookie receivers, and it's better than everybody else. So maybe I'm overvaluing this, but I could honestly see Kyler being nothing but a backup in 2 or 3 years if he doesn't, if he gets let go by the Cardinals or traded somewhere else or doesn't pan out somewhere else. So it's like, man, I'd rather just hold on to Kyler. And people are like, well, I'm offering you 3 first-round picks. Yeah, but first-round picks don't turn into Trevor Lawrence that often. I have Trevor Lawrence. It's like one of those things like, oh, it could be a boat, or you can get a mystery box, that kind of stuff. Like it could be a boat. I already have the boat, so why would I do this? It's so hard, but it's a good problem to have. But I don't know. Oh well, we'll figure it out. Jets. If a quarterback falls to them at 13, did they give Rodgers the big middle finger?
It probably would feel cool to do that.
This situation, yeah. Dude, this is crazy. This situation, I don't know what's going on. Everybody says it's a done deal and then he's getting moved and it hasn't happened. I'm just starting getting nervous if I'm on the other side here with the Jets. What are we going to get? Are the Packers just going to play hardball the whole time like they've been saying and want a couple first? For this to be out there this long and something not to be finalized yet, I'd be nervous on that way. And if I'm the Jets, I'm thinking, we put a firm stand and say we're giving you this and that's all we're giving you. And if you don't, then we're just out on him. But that's what I would do if I was the Jets. But who knows what they're thinking, because I think they can compete with him. But yeah, this situation has just been, it's classic Aaron Rodgers. Just nothing ever just as smooth with him.
Yeah, Chew, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I have to think they still go with Rodgers if that is the case. But, I think they'd rather – with who's going to fall to them at 13, if we're presuming a certain couple of people would be in the top couple of picks, if it's a Levis that falls, I would rather just go with Rodgers and just do what the best they possibly can at this point. It's the Jets. Things are bound to go wrong regardless of who they put under center, if we're being completely honest. But just put the superstar future Hall of Famer in there and just hope it works out.
Yeah. JT, Lions. Are the Lions finally favored to win this division?
I mean, they feel like they're everybody's darling this offseason. Everybody loves Dan Campbell after last year, and people are loving this team. The question is, how are they going to perform going in as possibly, the favorites to win the North? I mean, they've been the underdog for so long. Is that something that's going to kind of throw this team off when they're not everybody's, darling anymore? I don't know, but I think they go into the season as the favorite to win that division, even with the Vikings being as good as they've been. But their defense has been just such in shambles, especially at the end of the year. I think they're the favorite. It's going to be interesting to see if they can actually put it all together for the whole season.
Yeah. Packers. Do the Packers start the season with Jordan Love under center?
Yeah, it's about time they do that. They've got Love, and at this point, you have to see what you have in him. And I mean, I do think they have a solid team around him, both on the offensive and defensive side, but not an incredible one. And the hope is that, if Love isn't it, they are able to pivot pretty quickly off of him. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if they're necessarily going to be bad enough to get a pick that makes it worthwhile to pick somebody else next year. But you put him under center this year, and you just hope for the best.
Chew, I'm going to give you two in a row because you're a Panthers fan here. C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young?
Bryce Young, 100%. Watching him play, Bryce Young has absolute ice in his veins. I trust him with the ball, and I know that he can get it done. I know it's the slight frame. I know C.J. Stroud has just the look. He has the look, the build of the quarterback that everybody I feel like would want. But there's something about Bryce Young, that quality that you can't quite pinpoint it outside of just saying he's just clutch and he can just stay so composed, and that's what he's going to need to do to make it all the way.
All right, I cheat a little bit because that's your guy. So, Patriots, JT, are they really going to blow this backfield up again with another running back? If so, who's it going to be if they do that?
I don't know how they don't. That just seems like their way. It's like, we're going to take somebody in the 4th or 5th round. We're going to get him in there enough touches just to see what he does. I saw a lot of people making moves for Ramondre Stevenson in the offseason. I'm nervous about what that means for him, of what they could do. But I don't think there's any way they don't take a running back somewhere and then throw off everybody's value in that backfield.
It's crap. I got Ramondre in like 4 spots, and I'm so like, if I sell him for shit right now, because everybody else thinks that they're going to draft a running back too. But if I sell him for shit and they don't move on, and he has some kind of all-pro year this year, I'm going to be so pissed because I like Ramondre Stevenson too. I drafted him in almost every league. I traded for him for peanuts. We didn't do so well at the beginning of his rookie season. So I don't want him to go anywhere. He's only 24. He's still he's a powerhouse. He's a freak. He's like an Antonio Gibson kind of player. I love that type of dude. So I'm just going to keep him and cross my fingers, and I'm going to drink myself out to stupor if they do draft a running back, because I know it's going to. I just feel like that's the way things work over there. It drives you nuts. Raiders, is Jimmy G the answer, or are the Raiders in trouble?
Do you want me to take this one?
Yeah, go ahead. You get the odds. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't think Jimmy G is the answer necessarily. I think he's serviceable for what they're trying to do right now, but he is definitely not the future there. And that's even assuming he stays healthy, which I know he's had a tremendous problem doing so. He's got some weapons there. I know Waller left, even though he wasn't much of a weapon the last 2 years. But he'll be okay, but he's not it.
No. I don't know why the Raiders just didn't keep going with Derek Carr. I don't get it, but whatever. JT, Rams. Are the Rams hitting a hard reset in 2023?
It seems like it, with all these moves, they're trying to dump salary and get rid of guys. It just seems kind of crazy that the 2 guys that they wouldn't move would be Stafford and Kupp.
Right.
And so it's like they're kind of doing it, but kind of not. It seems strange that it feels like that's what they're doing. But then when they say, hell no, Stafford's coming back, we feel good about him. We feel good about Kupp. I'm scared for all my Stafford shares. I think Kupp could be pretty good no matter who's under center, just because I think he's a guy that gets the ball. But what for I paid for him a couple years ago in a few leagues to get him, thinking he's going to be a top 3 wide receiver with this offense and what's going on. I don't know. It's got me nervous for if I got any Rams players, I'm kind of nervous about what kind of production I'm looking at this year.
Yeah. Chew. So there's something holding up this contract. Lamar Jackson not having an agent. What's in this contract that's like the deal breaker? Is it like free beef jerky for life, or all you can eat a Red Lobster or something like that? Like what is in this contract that is preventing this thing from getting done?
You're close. I was actually thinking it was supposed to be bottomless crispy calamari. I assume that was a difference.
I would hold out for that. That's for sure.
As long as it's crispy and not like wet and it's soggy.
That's right.
Absolutely. Oh, that's awesome. That was great. Saints, will Jalen Carter follow them at number 10?
Are the Saints at 10 or is it the Eagles at 10? I think the Eagles are 10, right?
I think it's the Saints.
I might be wrong on that. I don't think Jalen Carter gets the Saints.
Oh, it is the Eagles. Never mind. Sorry, yeah. You're right.
I think, I tell you what, if Jalen Carter falls to 10 and goes to the Eagles, man, with Jordan Davis from last year, that's going to be a tough defensive front there in Philly. I mean, those guys are 2 monsters. That would be a crazy duo. Obviously they played at Georgia together. That'd be a great duo up front for the Eagles. I don't know what the Saints are doing. I'm very confused on what they're trying to do, what their build is. I mean, it seems like every year they trade up or move and lose another first-round pick in another round. So I don't know what the Saints are doing, but I am not feeling good outside of anyone that's not named Chris Olave on the Saints right now.
Yeah, right. Seahawks, what does Seattle do with number 5 in the draft?
So if they're making that pick, I think it will be great if Anthony Richardson got to go there and sit behind Geno Smith, because with that extension that he got, it's not as if he's actually going to be there for the 3 years I think that he was signed for. But if it's probably the more realistic pick, somebody like Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher. So I think that would be a great help. I know they had slam dunk after slam dunk last year with all of their draft picks. And I think that they shouldn't stop there, though. They still need to continue to build up that defense. So
Seattle, Detroit, Vegas, Atlanta, Tennessee, all the spots that can use probably a quarterback in the future somewhere if somebody falls. So that's we'll see what happens. This is going to be a fun draft this year. A lot of offensive linemen and defensive players, but hopefully it'll be a little bit more fantasy relevant players than we're expecting. But we'll see. The Steelers, Allen Robinson is in. Who's out?
I like this move for the Steelers getting Robinson. The question is going to be if spreading the ball around. Are these guys going to all be happy if they're not getting a ton of targets? Because between him, Pickens, Deontay, Muth, thrown out of the backfield, the Najee and other guys. So that if they can all make it work, I think it's a really good move to get a veteran, guy on the team. Obviously, Robinson's kind of fallen apart the last couple of years, injuries, different things. He hasn't been the guy that we saw a couple of years ago in Jacksonville, but I think it's worth a shot. They didn't pay that much money for him. I think they're maybe paying 5 or 7 of his contract, and the Rams are taking the rest. So if they can make it work, if they can keep the personalities happy, I think the Steelers got a steal here.
My Calvin Austin shares went right out the window as soon as they made that move. I was going to trade him for like a mid-second round pick too, which I was like, I like Calvin Austin, but I let it sit there. Usually I put timers on all my shit too, and I didn't put a timer on this, and it was going through. And as soon as that they signed him, it got denied. I'm like, God damn it! Like, one more day, the guy was probably going to take him. It's the only person in the league that actually had a Steelers fan wanted Calvin Austin, and I don't know why I didn't just say go ahead and take him.
Yeah, Steelers fans are high on Austin, but again, we haven't seen him. He was a 4th-round pick. I mean, the guy's got a ton of speed. I mean, I think if they could figure out how to use Austin in special teams, kick return, punt return, so things like that, I think that's going to be where he's valuable. But I'm not sold that he's going to be a real fantasy asset on this team. I think he can be good for the team, but I think he's going to maybe be that Ray McLeod type of spot where they run a couple end arounds a game to him, they get him a couple passes, but is he going to get a volume where he's ever, a guy you can trust in fantasy? I just don't know if that's ever going to be the case.
Yeah, he is a pinball man. Like he's an electric player, but again, like you said, yeah, never. I don't think he's going to be an awesome standout. Houston, did they really pass on the quarterback and stick with Davis Mills for this tank?
So shout out to my buddy Tyler in my last podcast episode talking about this. I really think it happens. I think they have so many holes that they need to fill on both sides of the ball. I think they're going to be bad enough next year, even once they address a couple of those picks this year, that they can still be within earshot of being able to still get a good quarterback. Whether they still have to trade up, but they'll at least be close enough to where that's a real possibility, and they won't give away, trade the farm, so to speak.
Agreed. Titans, why does this feel like the best landing spot for Anthony Richardson?
When I think about it, it makes me think of like the Vince Young when he went there, kind of a deal. I don't know. I don't know if I love that spot for him, but I feel like it would be a good spot just because I think they're ready to move on from Tannehill. I think they maybe give him this year until they can figure out what their QB situation is going to be in the future. I don't love that offense for Richardson because I just want to see some more playmakers around him. I mean, he's a guy that, struggled with accuracy in college, and you hope you get some players that kind of feed in and help him out. And that's where I'm a little scared. If he does end up on the Titans, is it going to be like, oh, man, we need 100 yards rushing out at AR every week, or we're in trouble because he just doesn't have weapons to move the ball down the field. So while I could see him ending up in Tennessee, I just don't know if I love that spot for him fantasy-wise.
I like it just for the fact of the matter that I think that they're going to keep Tannehill this year. They're going to get rid of anybody that's good on the team after this year, minus Burks, and just start from scratch. And he'll have a whole year to sit on the bench and learn the offense, maybe get a new offensive coordinator and maybe a new head coach and start from scratch with a whole new team that's got a lot more draft picks for next season. So it would be nice for him to sit for a year, learn an NFL offense, and then be ready when it is time. Because I think everybody does agree that he needs a little bit of time in the oven to bake before he takes over an NFL franchise. So, Vikings, how many more years does Kirk Cousins have?
I would not be shocked if this is his last one there. After this season, it's beginning of all those void years that the Saints made so special. Feels like just yesterday with all of their contract structures. But with the Vikings, if I remember correctly, there were rumblings of he was going to get another fully guaranteed extension. That was kind of the process of how it had been going, and I think that was halted. So the fact that they did not do that, I think, is more indicative of the fact that they're either okay letting it ride and seeing if they really need to extend him, or, I mean, he's going to be, 36 by the start of 2024, and by no means is that too old, and certainly with his play style, but I think they see his limitations in the ceiling, and they're out on that.
Yeah, right. Bring us to JT, the Washington football team. What does this sale of this team mean to the team's direction for 2023?
I mean, I think this is huge. I used to live in D.C. I used to cover them. I used to go to their training camp, do all that stuff when I worked at WUSA, and they're in D.C. And, man, the fans have just been screaming for this for a while. I think everyone I know that's a Washington fan has excitement. They're like, man, finally we can move past some of this stuff. Hopefully that, lifts a little weight off of that franchise, and hopefully that gives them a chance to just go full bore in a new direction. And so I like it. I think, they're an up-and-coming team. I really, we've talked about it before. I really want to see Sam Howell get a shot this year. I want to see what he can do with the enemy. And I just think they have some decent weapons. And if they can add to that offense a little bit, I mean, they've got a pretty stout defense. If they can get some of those guys, Chase Young and those guys back from injury, I just think they're kind of an up-and-coming team. I think they could be maybe like a giant surprise this year, where they're a team that if they can get a good QB play, there's a chance that maybe they could push for a late playoff spot. So I just think for anyone that's a fan of the team, I think they just feel like this is a brand new start, and the team has just been so dysfunctional for so long. I mean, I just think it's a fresh air, breath of fresh air for them.
It's Antonio Gibson season, baby. That's what you meant to say, right?
Absolutely.
All right, good. We got through all 32 teams. We got a couple trades in my Mighty McGlynn Dynasty leagues. These are all my home leagues. 12-team, 30-man rosters, no kickers or defense. It's PPR, tight end premium, 0.75, Superflex, 5 and 2 touchdown to interception. You get points for 100 and 200-yard rushing, receiving, stuff like that. So it's just, like I said, 12-team Superflex. Khalil Shakir for Sam Darnold. JT, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I think I clicked it 2 times in a row. I'm on Darnold there. Like I said, I'm trying to get Darnold where I can. I just think that he's going to be cheap enough, but if he hits, he can hit big. So I like Darnold there, and I am very iffy on Shakur, what they do at wide receiver, whether he gets a lot of PT this year for the Bills. I'm nervous about him.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Brandon Cooks for Quez Watkins and Darnell Mooney.
So I am still a bit of a believer in Mooney, but I think with DJ Moore entering the fold, and I really think Mooney maybe is best served as a 3 and not even a 2 in that offense, if I'm being honest. So, Cooks is about 30 years old at this point, but he's in the Cowboys offense, and I'll take that all day.
There you go. JT, 23-105 and 304 for George Kittle, and then 23-203.
Ooh.
105 for Kittle is kind of expensive, but it is a 0.75 PPR.
Yeah, it's the same. Depending on how, again, the biggest issue on Kittle is health. Is like, the guy can make some plays and he can be electric, but you almost feel like you're going to get a 3 or 4 or 5 games he's going to miss per year. I like this class. Man, I'm probably, unless I'm just absolutely dying for a tight end, like I just have absolutely no one, maybe I make the trade for Kittle, but I'm probably leaning the pick side, probably in the 105 side there.
Yeah. All right, here's a big one. Jamar Chase and Rashad White for Christian Kirk, Nick Chubb, 23-111 and 23-204.
This one's relatively easy for me, and hopefully it's not because I'm just seeing the name, but it's the Jamar Chase side. I'm not a huge Rashad White fan. I don't think he's the 3-down guy in Tampa, and also Tampa's going to be pretty rough to watch this year. But Christian Kirk I know did well in the new look Jaguars offense, and Chubb getting up there. I think he'll be 27 now, be 28 upcoming season. There's other picks. It's Jamar Chase in that offense. He's stuck with a hell of a quarterback there in Cincinnati, so I'll take that side.
Yeah. JT, George Pickens and KJ Osborne for 23-108.
So this is one, I think some people are probably on that 108. I am on the Pickens side on this. I actually made this trade in a couple leagues where I had late first-round picks, and I traded the pick for Pickens. I just think George Pickens got huge upside. I just think I know he's a divisive player. Some people, don't think he's got anything. They think he's like, he's okay. He's never going to be that great guy. I'm in on him. I think he's got huge upside. Especially now he's got a full year removed from that ACL injury. I just think he's going to come into this season and really connect with Pickett. So I'm making that move. I would even do straight up Pickens for a 108, 109, 110, something like that.
Yeah, this receiving class does not really impress me at all. And in JSN, is he that good, or is he just that good because his class is so bad? That's kind of what scares me here. So I think the Pickens and Osborne side. Osborne's like kind of low-key underrated, in my opinion, also. So I get that.
Depending on what the Vikings do at wide receiver at the draft, Osborne might be a playable flex if they don't go out and get a bunch of guys. So he's worth a flyer too.
Exactly. DJ Chark, DJ Chark for Antonio Gibson and Zonovan Knight.
When I first saw this on the show sheet, I thought I read it wrong. Antonio Gibson side all day. This is an incredible deal. DJ Chark, I do like him for fantasy, but he's got to be around. He's got to be playing. He's taken yet another prove-it deal last year with Detroit, had a couple of good games. Now in Carolina, so I'm excited to see him for the sake of being a Panther. But Antonio Gibson, despite being in the doghouse and being left to be a kick returner sometimes, and Bijan, Brian Robinson taking some of his snaps, Antonio Gibson's an absolute weapon.
Yes, I like the offense this year with Antonio Gibson to possibly being the feature of the whole offense, like it should be. So this was my trade. Thank you very much. I get Gibby everywhere. So this was another one of mine. Luke Musgrave and Zach Kuntz for Terrace Marshall, Daniel Bellinger, and $20 out of a $100 fan budget.
I like Musgrave and Kuz. I just think the high upside of both those guys. I like Bellinger, but I think obviously getting Waller hurts his stock a little bit there for the Giants. I think Terrence Marshall actually has a shot to do something this year for the Panthers. But again, this might be the year. If he doesn't do something this year, he might not be worth anything on your fantasy team. So I'll take the 2 rookie tight ends. I just think both those guys have high upside, and they feel like guys that could be featured in kind of that slot role where they get a lot of targets, both of them. So I'll take the rookie tight ends.
Yeah, I got Njoku, and I have I think on that team I also have Hawkinson. So I can let these 2 guys sit for a couple years and see what pans out with that, especially Kuntz, athletic freak. We'll see what happens. So Travis Etienne, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and 23-311 for Jamar Chase and Chase Claypool. So the same league. Chase Claypool is getting thrown on a league like a rag doll. I mean, Jamar Chase getting thrown on a league like a rag doll for some reason. I tried trading. Well, first, tell me about who do you think about this trade? ETN, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 23-311 for Jamar Chase and Chase Claypool. What do you think about that?
I think I'm probably going to go ahead and lean the Amon-Ra St. Brown side. I think when we're looking at this, I know we looked at the previous trade with Jamar Chase, and the other side was Christian Kirk. But I think if we're going to see Amon-Ra St. Brown on that side, and you have someone like ETN, I don't think much of anything of Chase Claypool at this point. And I think if you're able to get 2 high-end startable assets on the ETN St. Brown side, that's the winner right there.
JT?
Yeah, I thought this trade was pretty even, to be honest with you. I'm probably slightly leaning the Chase side for me, just because whenever you can get that absolute dynasty stud that I think is worth a ton, I like it. But I think this is a fair deal. If I'm definitely needing running back help, I could see making that move because it's not that far of a tier down from Chase to St. Brown if you're going to add yourself at Etienne. I like Etienne a lot more than the trade before with Chubb. So, like I said, I could totally see, depending on team need, that other side. But this one's real close for me. I slightly take Chase in this one.
I'm not a humongous ETN fan, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think this year with a couple other people on the team that are when Jameson Williams is like full strength now and they have everybody back, I'm not sure Amon-Ra is going to be the same that he had those crazy weeks like in the Super Bowl like 2 years ago for everybody's fantasy football league. I think he made a big name for himself, kind of like same thing like Gabe Davis did when he had those 4 touchdowns and when everybody's eyes were on the TV screen. So I think Amon-Ra's a little bit overrated, but I think I'm still doing the Chase side because when you have an elite player like that who's going to score you probably 20 points a game, 25 points a game almost every week, you just kind of have to go for that. That's just me, but I'm not an ETN fan either, so to put that out there. Joe Mixon for 2023 210. What do you think about that? Chew, go ahead.
It feels a little dirty to pick the 210 at this point for a guy like Joe Mixon, if I'm being honest, but I think we might be there. With how atrocious he was this season in terms of just being incredibly inefficient, that offense can do fine without him in the sense of the passing ability that they have with so many weapons. The fact that Samaje Perine leaving is actually a huge impact to the team in a negative way, I think is more indicative of how bad Mixon was. So I think I'd probably go the 210, and I feel bad, but I'd do it.
JT?
Yeah, I'm probably going 210 here. I'd rather take a shot at one of those rookie running backs, that plug and play, and see if I can get a couple years out of him. Maybe Mixon surprises us, but I feel like he's ripe to fall off a cliff. I mean, he had a couple big games last year that kind of saved his overall season if you looked at his production. But, man, he was not great most of the year. I just feel like he could just be out. He could be one of those guys where, like, oh, man, Joe Mixon out of the league. Wow. Like, I think it could be that quick where he might not even, especially if these charges stick and all the other stuff happens, I can see teams being like, it's not worth the hassle. He's too old, blah, 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 everything else that's happened with him. Man, I'd probably trade him no matter what if I can to try to get something out of him.
Yeah, I agree 100% here. Like Joe Mixon, half of his fantasy production was from 1 week where he scored 5 touchdowns last season. So, yeah, I get it. Wendy Early. Hi, everybody. So thanks for joining in, Wendy. We got a draft I think May 1st is a draft. Me and her are co-partners on a dynasty startup. So I love dynasty startups. It's my favorite thing to do is do a dynasty startup. So me and her are teammates. She's going to the expo also. So she's going to pay for all my beer, she said, is what I heard. So don't worry. I don't drink that much.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. All right. So that's it for the trades. So every week we evaluate a team, send in by a listener to decide if it's a simple rebuild or remodel. What's the biggest needs of this team? Who are your keep, trade, cut guys kind of thing? And what kind of trades would you make to make this team a better team? Put it in the right direction, whether it's a rebuild, you say, hey, we got to get rid of these guys, or he's not quite there yet. I picked a team that was middle of the road, did not make the playoffs last year. Again, this is the same 12-team, 30-man rosters, no kickers, no defense, 0.75 tight end premium, 5.2 touchdowns to interceptions, that kind of stuff. So here is the team. He's got Justin Fields, Tyler Algier, David Montgomery, Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Waddle, Justin Jefferson, Cole Kmet, Adam Thielen, Jordan Akins, Russell Wilson is a second quarterback. Then he's got Bridgewater, Desmond Ridder, Brock Purdy, Case Keenum, Marlon Mack, Kareem Hunt, which we don't know what, he's still a wild card out in free agency. Kyron Williams, which everybody kind of had big plans for him, never panned out. Isaiah Spiller, another guy, never really panned out. Dontrell Hilliard, Khalil Herbert, who's got leading the Bears backfield, DeAndre Hopkins, Cedric Wilson, Devontae Parker, Byron Pringle, T.Y. Hilton, Tutu Atwell, Denzel Mims, John Mechie, who might be making a comeback this year, Kadarius Toney, he's very polarizing. People hate him or they love him. I love him. Especially if you have Mahomes, I think it's going to be a good stack to have Toney this year. O.J. Howard, and on his IR, he's got Tyron Wallace, Dwayne Eskridge, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Damian Pierce. So this is a pretty good team, but unfortunately, you have to make the playoffs to be good, and that's to win money. That's kind of the name of it. He didn't make the playoffs, but in our leagues, if you win the shit bowl, you get pick 113. That's the prize for winning the shit bowl. So that kind of keeps everybody in. It's a pretty good prize for not making the playoffs to have an extra first round draft pick. And this guy he's got all his picks. This guy hates trading. Is my neighbor Joe across the street. He's a jerk. He never trades with me ever, even though I want to. So his team has got. Let me go back to his team and see what picks he's got. So he's got the 106, the 205, the 305, 405, 505, and the 601, which in Sleeper we use a 6th round. We only use 601, which ends up that's the 113 pick. So he's got 16, 113, 205, 305, and this team. So who wants to start? What direction do you think this team can go? Because it's right there. Like, he's right on the border of not making the playoffs or missing the playoffs, but the middle's a terrible place to be sometimes. What could this guy do to make his team better?
I'll jump in there. So for me, obviously he's right there. Russell Wilson, if he has any kind of decent season, obviously that pumps up his team a lot. As you can look at that team, obviously with how bad Russ was last year, that was probably one of the main reasons he didn't make the playoffs. But if he can get a little bit of bounce back from Russ this year, which I think you get with Sean Payton going there, Damian Pierce, if they don't go somewhere at running back and he can get back in there healthy and give you something on the ground. You don't know about Tyler Algier, again, because where they're going to go running back wise. But he's got some good pieces. Like I said, Toney in there. I think you can pump him in the starting lineup. Hopefully maybe John Mechie comes back would be big. And then I think Wan'Dale Robinson actually has a shot to kind of bounce back. So I definitely think he's got a couple guys here. Maybe Hopkins ends up at a defensive spot, and hopefully you get some out of Khalil Herbert. So he actually isn't that far off. I think he just, to me, it's can these guys actually step up and produce? Because you've got studs in Waddle and Jefferson, and if you can have another year with the rushing production from Fields and then add in some of that passing, hopefully with all these extra weapons, I mean, his team, I don't think he needs to make anything crazy as far as moves wise. He just needs this guy to actually, the guys he has to perform as to the top of their ability. And the way we've seen some of these guys actually score in fantasy, and hopefully some of these second year players kind of bust out for him.
What do you think, Chu?
Yeah, with it being super flex, I do like that, Fields, of course, is a great building block right there. And you have a couple of other quarterbacks who are, in super flex, if they are one of the 32 starting quarterbacks, that's a good thing to have. I do think that might be one thing if he really wants to put himself, in that, raise his floor to be able to have a better chance of making the playoffs. I think maybe trying to do some shuffling to upgrade Ritter plus another piece plus a pick to jump up to something like a Trevor Lawrence or something like that, somebody firmly within the top 8. And I mean, in terms of everything else with the running backs and the wide receivers, there's good depth there, especially with wide receivers. If you have young studs like Jefferson, Ayuk, and Waddle, I think that's fantastic. Like you were mentioning, Wan'Dale Robinson, I think, in what the offense is now, I know he really only got one true game to show what he could do, and he did very well doing it. A couple of other just, probably droppable wide receivers, but tight end, if you're not going to have a top 3, top 4 guy, Kmet by himself basically is probably not going to do enough. So if you're not going to be able to secure one of those top 3 guys, probably adding in another top 10, top 12 tight ends, you can kind of shuffle those guys around throughout the year. I think that maybe that could be the difference between winning a couple of weeks there. So, and it's also very good that with this structure right now, he does have all of his picks too. So it's not that he's mortgaged everything and he's stuck with what he currently has. So he can grow from here.
Yeah, but with having Fields and Russell Wilson as your 2 quarterbacks, both of those guys were expecting pretty decent years from. I mean, Fields, as long as he doesn't get hurt and he throws the ball a little bit more, I mean, we still want him to run the ball a little bit, but he needs when you bring in DJ Moore and hopefully they draft a wide receiver early. So, that JSN has been rumored to them, but he's been rumored to every team in the league already. So who knows? If Russell Wilson comes in, Sean Payton kind of shows him the way, and he shows him the Jedi way to be a quarterback again. Maybe he can make that work. His 2 running backs, David Montgomery, which I like David Montgomery this year. So I'm pretty happy with that. Damian Pierce kind of, I don't know, towards the end of the year last year, he kind of panned out, fizzed out a little bit, injuries, and I think he wasn't ready for that kind of workload right from the get-go with year 1. But year 2 will be ready. Khalil Herbert, who knows what's going to happen in that backfield? We'll see what happens with how much work he gets. Algier, another good. Kareem Hunt, he definitely does have some depth at running back here. Now, Justin Jefferson and Jalen Waddle is a fantastic 1-2 punch at wide receiver. You start 3 wide receivers, and then there's 2 flex spots. That could be anything. But he's got Hopkins, Wan'Dale, Brandon Ayuk. He's pretty good for that 3rd spot, and a couple. Kadarius Toney, Adam Thielen, who might have a resurgence right now for a year or so. It seems like to me like his weakest part is tight end. They Cole Kmet, Jordan Akins, and OJ Howard are just pretty much you almost cut those guys. But Kmet, for some reason, I just feel like everybody thought Kmet was going to be so much better than he is. And I know it takes a couple years for tight ends to pan out, but they got to throw the ball first of all. And now the middle of the field's going to be eaten up by DJ Moore. So what is Cole Kmet going to do? He's not, I know he's a good blocker. Maybe that's going to use him for a little bit more, but he's not a fantasy tight end. He's going to have to draft a tight end somewhere in his draft. He's got plenty of picks. So, are we thinking that with his 6th pick, he's going to go something like a maybe Jahmyr Gibbs, improve the running game a little bit, or hopefully one of the quarterbacks falls to him, maybe Will Levis falls because nobody likes him. If he falls later in the draft, in the NFL draft itself, who knows? I'm not sure that you're going to get a quarterback at 6 over there, but Zach Charbonnet, maybe, and he might. What if Jordan Addison or Zay Flowers if he doesn't like the rest of the guys, takes one of them guys, and then his 113 pick, looking at a Quentin Johnston or maybe A-Chain. A-Chain's a little small, but a Vanakanda maybe, or who else is around that area? Marvin Mims, something like that. What he does have some pretty decent picks. He's got some pretty decent players. I hate to say stay the course, but this is a situation where you really do want to kind of stay the course here. Just maybe trade away try and get something for Tutu Atwell or T.Y. Hilton or any of these guys in the bottom who are never going to pan out. Kyron Williams and Isaiah Spiller, I don't think if somebody might trade you a 5th round pick for both of them, that kind of stuff. But keeping running backs on my roster is things I love to do. I love to have running backs just in case somebody plays piggy bump up in case of injuries, which happen all the time. So a backup quarterback, behind Ritter would probably be somewhere. He's got Purdy, Bridgewater, Case Keenum, Desmond Ritter. I'm not sure Purdy's a long-time answer for the 49ers. He might be Mr. Right now, but not Mr. Right. Ritter, same situation. One good backup quarterback behind Wilson and Fields is, I guess, somewhere to go. But tight end, you draft a tight end now, but you're going to wait 3 years for anybody to pan out anyway. So I'm trading maybe the one something for somebody who's got a decent tight end, like maybe Greg Dulcich or something like that. Try and get somebody who's in the top maybe 8 or 9, maybe a David Njoku. Njoku's kind of workload got chewed up a little bit when they got Elijah Moore, but they're still. I think the tight end is the biggest need on this team, and then piecemeal receivers and running backs. But the depth on this team is very good. This is one of the teams that kind of scares me, because if he drafts well, this team is going to be really, really good and a contender for a long time, because he's got some pretty good young talent on his team. So, you kind of agree with that, or what do you think?
Yeah, I like what you're saying there, John. I think the same thing. I think he, if you can get one of those top wide receivers or someone he likes for landing spot at that 1-6, I like that idea. If you get a guy there, then in that second, third round, he's got that extra pick. I'm looking at tight ends. I'm looking at running backs. Like I said, I think this is a pretty deep tight end running back crew. I think I would just pile on a bunch of those guys and hope somebody hits and get some much. Because again, if you could get a better year out of Russ, I mean, he gave you nothing last year.
Right.
I mean, nothing as a starting QB. I just don't think Kmet. I mean, I know he's not the answer, but I also think you're looking at everybody else in your league and like, do they have the answer at tight end? Like, most teams are probably not going to have a super playable guy. I actually like the idea that he's got Kmet because he has Fields. I mean, Kmet might get him 0 a lot of weeks, but man, if he gets a touchdown pass, that's a double up. I love that combo. So if I'm going to have a middle of the road tight end, I'd rather have the guy that I have as QB. Because then at least I might get 0, but I might get 14 or 21 week out of them. So, and again, maybe if you feel like, Goddard, you could get a Goddard for like the 1-6, and you really were wanting to pump up that tight end, and you make a move for a first rounder for a top 5 or 6 guy. I think you maybe could do that, but I'd almost stay pat, take like a Jordan Addison, add him to my flex wide receiver plays that I've got. And then I would just jump on, depending on who falls to me, that last pick of the first round and those second, third round picks, I'd be jumping on running backs. I'd be jumping on tight ends and kind of just loading up and letting those guys see who shakes out.
Yeah, this draft class kind of fell right in this guy's lap for what he needs as far, those later picks. Yeah, Darnell Washington, something like that. I mean, Hendon Hooker might fall in his lap in like the late third round, and that's somebody he could maybe bank on for the future. And Hendon Hooker, I think, is super underrated. So
I mean, depending on when Hooker gets drafted, maybe that extra first round pick is where he takes Hooker. Maybe he steps on him and says, "Hey, he can be my guy that hopefully he's a starter in a year or two, and he replaces Russ in my lineup in 2 years or something like that." So that's definitely something I'd be keeping an eye out for him too. If he's a guy who likes Hooker and likes the landing spot, I would be interested in trying to jump on him maybe at the end of the first round there.
Do you think that Mayer's the best tight end in this best fantasy tight end in this league, or just maybe the best NFL tight end, or neither? Do you think maybe one of the other tight ends in this draft class is better than who'd be your best, like, let's say, fantasy outlook tight end for you to target in later rounds of the draft, like Sam Laporta or Darnell Washington, or who else is the other guys? I don't know who's the other good tight ends in this draft class that are possibly underrated also.
Well, I just like the guys that I could get at cost. I mean, I like Meyer. I think he's good, but I just think he's going in the late first round, early second in a lot of drafts. And I'd rather sit there and see if I can get like a Musgrave in the third round, like that mid-third round. I'm targeting him if I can get him. I like Kuntz, like you said. If I can get Kuntz in like the fourth round, fifth round, even Laporta. I like Laporta. I just did a little rookie draft where I got him in the fourth round at the 4.8. I love that. I got Musgrave at the 3.8. So I even piling up those two guys together, something like that. I think there's definitely some guys and I just think there's some guys you could just totally take a flyer if you're in the fifth or sixth round that have a good shot. So I just prefer taking a flyer on some of those guys as opposed to taking one of those tight ends early. I mean, if you can get a Kincaid, drop to him in the second round, I'm all about that. If I can get Kincaid at like 2.6, I would do that as well. I don't want to overspend because I feel like there's enough guys that I can get later for just a better cost value.
Yes, absolutely. All right, well, thanks a lot, guys. This is my commissioner evaluation show, and this is what I do for fun, and you guys make it fun for me. I really appreciate you coming on today. So, JT, where can everybody find you at? What's going on? What do you got going on now? You went from just hanging out with me, and then all of a sudden become like a rock star in the fantasy football space in the last 6 months or so, man. I'm super proud of you.
I appreciate it. I'm kind of all over the place right now. You can find me on Twitter at JT Orange. Post all my stuff on there. Also, DLF got articles coming out left and right for the fantasy draft. All the upcoming draft stuff. I'll have a couple things from the draft, actually. I'll be having on the site, kind of doing some IDP rundowns and some things after the first and second rounds. So you can find me there. You can find me over at Dynasty Pros Football, doing other podcasts, stuff like that. I got a new The Stew with JT Brew podcast that's going to start up here hopefully in the next week or so. So you can find me over there doing that stuff too. And just writing articles and getting as much done as I possibly can. So I'm kind of all over the place right now, but yeah, look me at Twitter, JT Orange. That's where kind of got everything thrown up on there.
This guy's a fucking rock star. I love it. So, Chew, see us out. Where can everybody find you at? What's going on? Tell us all about you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Father Dynasty. And you check out the podcast on YouTube, Father Dynasty, of course. Pumping out usually about one episode a week, kind of depends on scheduling, that sort of thing. And also doing some writing for goingfor2.com. So check out, I have a couple of rookie profiles there. Dynasty strategy article, working on something now, which is vulnerable veterans. So talking about some of those, each team's veteran that could be replaced either this year or early 2024 by one of these 2023 rookies. So go check those out.
Thank you, sir. Thank you both. I got an article coming out for PW tomorrow. I just put one out last week for Dynasty Pros. I'm trying to get into writing. I've never been a writer, so it's kind of hard for me to learn how to write, especially for different formats, how people want things. So give me a break. My kid's a little bit older now. I'm just trying to do this fantasy football thing, but eventually I'll learn how to write. As long as I have an editor who can, do all the editing for me, I should be okay. But that's it. That is our show. So here is my out song, and thank you guys very much for jumping on my show with me. We'll be here next week. And thanks for making the show awesome again.
This is the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with your host, John McGlynn.
Is that Herms?
He got them guests on the Rolodex, stopping by to talk about some Dynasty Superflex. Everybody, commish is in. It's time to sit down to listen to John McGlynn. Yo, who we trading, who we fading, who we getting off the squad. Knowledge never overrated, playing for number one. And yo, McGlynn is in. It's time to let the fun begin. It's the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with John McGlynn.
Herms NFL is the guy who made that song. If you ever need a song for your thing, have at it. JT's gonna hook me up with some kind of video stuff here soon, so we'll be rocking and rolling. Thanks everybody for coming out. I appreciate it. Have a good night.